Hey y'all, it's Nancy, the Handy Scandy. Thank you for coming back for another crafty venture. Today I want to share with you this beautiful detailed red rubber stamp from Jechnque Junkies, and it's called Paris Winter Watercolors. It's part of the January 21 release, and it is beautiful. You guys know that I love watercolor. You guys know that I'm about loosey-goosey and imperfections and all of that. And the sketchy feel to this stamp, it just touches my heart. And I want to travel and I want to get out, and I especially want to go to Europe, and I had to have this one. And so, embracing that whole loosey-goosey imperfection, I decided I wanted to use my pigment powders that I've had for probably 12 years, and I think I've used them one time. They are the definition of loosey-goosey imperfections because, I mean, you can use them in various ways. The ways I use them today are definitely imperfect. I stick with kind of the yellow-green and then the orangey-green palette, and I just let it go. So I wet my paper. You can see I heat embossed them because I wanted there to be like some pockets and some wells for water and pigment to settle. But otherwise, I'm just letting it do its thing. So I'm using these two colors. One's a green, one's a yellow. I don't even know where they're from, y'all. I don't even know where I got them from. I've just had them forever in my stash. So I'm sprinkling the colors on. They both look orange, but you see that green starting to burst there? Because the pigment doesn't really show itself until it hits water. So I dampened the paper, but here's where they come to life. Look at that explosion of color. Are you kidding? Oh, I love it. It was a little too much water. You can't really see. I've zoomed in quite a bit, but yeah, I really saturated that paper. I am using some Canson XL watercolor. I decided I wanted a little more pigment, so I'm just sprinkling it on. And I hit it again with my little mister bottle because I want the colors to burst. And you can see that's exactly what they do. They bloom, they burst, they spread, they run. And I have a lot of water sitting on that panel. So I hit it with my heat tool because I don't want to dab up the excess water because that pulls the pigment away, as you could see when I did that in the beginning. But I want to dry because I'm impatient and I want to add more color. I want there to be layers. But this, guys, if you're a perfectionist, you don't want to do this. If you want to just let loose and play, then you want to do this. And it's so much fun. I could have made 10 of these panels just playing with these pigments and just letting them do their own thing, just letting them take on their own life. So that big old brush that I'm using there is, I don't even know, it's a Royal and Langnickel. The number on it is R88WR. I don't know what that means. But it's big and it worked perfect for me for just kind of laying down some water, and then on the next panel I use it to put some color into my sky. So again, this one there's no real plan. I'm just sprinkling pigment and letting it take on its own life. And I'm spraying it and trying not to oversaturate this card, but I'm having a hard time with that. But I pick it up and I let the waters run and dribble, and I don't want it to get muddy, which it was starting to do down there on the bottom. But I hit it again with my heat tool just to hurry the process along. And I love the harsh lines where the watercolor starts to dry, and then I just set it aside to dry on its own. So this second panel was stamped and heat embossed in the same way. I did use my Elements ink from Lavinia Stamps, and I like it. It's good. And I used the Raven Black embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. And again, this is the Canson XL watercolor. So nothing fancy pants, this is just me playing in the craft room today. And I love these. And so here you can see that I've sprinkled the pigment powder onto my towel. I mean, I didn't even use a palette. I have 4 or 5, maybe 7 watercolor palettes, and I used a towel. You know, you just use what you got in front of you. And can you see on this green how it's kind of separating and there's a yellow kind of undertone to it? That's one color. That's one color, and it gives you both that yellow and that green. And again, this is called Paris Winter Watercolor. But you're the artist. You make it what you want. So for me, when I added the green and it has the yellows, excuse me, like the spring greens, to me, that's exactly what it's like, Paris in the spring. And I could have added more colors to it and given it more of a springtime feel with some pinks and some oranges, and been a little more precise with it and had more of a plan. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to stick with this really simple palette, the yellows and the greens. And this time I have an orange, just like a mango kind of a color. It's not really orange, it's not really yellow. But here I am. I've zoomed out a little bit so you could kind of see my whole process. And I could have put these pigments into a watercolor palette and added water to them and used them like liquid watercolors. But I liked just picking them up with my wet brush. And then when I was done, I threw the towel in the washer, and they're watercolor pigments, so it just washed right out. No stains, nothing. And I used the towel, in all honesty, I did put thought into it, because these powders are so fine and they go everywhere. I mean, you don't want to tap real hard because they will blurt out and you're going to have pigment everywhere. But I thought that the fibers from the towel would kind of control some of that overspray, if you will. So yeah, here I am. I'm just going in, adding layers and depth and putting some more color, that yellow kind of orangey color, into the windows, into the street lights. And I hit the Capitol building with it. And then in the end, I'm like, wait, I want more. I want more. So I do that. I'm still going at it, just trying to add some depth of color and just going in more and more. And depending on the amount of water you have will control, if you will, the intensity of the color. But with this stamp, guys, you can use it for whatever season you want to. It can be a hello, it can be a birthday, it can be whatever you want. It can be Valentine's Day. I mean, Paris, right? The city of love. Ooh la la, could definitely be Valentine's Day. So I decide that that's too much white space for me. I need more. And I wanted something in that sky. I thought about bringing in a stencil, and I thought, nope, let's just stick with these pigments and let's see what they do. Oh, look at that. Get my hand out of the way. Get my hand out of the way. This tealy green, and I could have just mixed those two colors together and gotten something very similar to this, but this makes that cityscape pop. And I could have done it a night sky. I could have done it, I mean, you know, be creative. You can make that sky whatever you want it to look like, and that is going to make that cityscape pop. It's gorgeous. And again, just I have a lot of water on there. I'm just laying the pigment down, not being precise, just adding it in the crevices and then letting it flow, tipping the card, letting the water just take on life of its own. And as the water moves, the pigment moves, and it spreads and it blooms, and it's, oh, look at that. Look at that. And look how it's like coming off of the buildings. It's so cool. When it's dry, definitely an unintended effect, but those watercolor seams, if you will, where it's kind of streaming really thick there, it looks like a lightning bolt coming down and hitting the Capitol building when it's dry. It's so stinking cool. And again, it's not on purpose. It's that unintended. And it's so cool. So look at that. Isn't that like a lightning bolt? It's so cool. But in true watercolor fashion, they dry back really soft. So you saw when I laid down that sky that was like boom in your face teal, and it's not that anymore once it dries back. So keep that in mind. And that was why I kept going in layer after layer, and you kept seeing me just try to add more dimension to those colors, because it's watercolor, right? It's going to dry back. So I have used two different stamps from Jechnque Junkies. The green one says, today anything is possible. And you know what? We feel like life is out of control right now with COVID and just life, right? COVID aside, life is just hard. But anything is possible. While we're still here, anything is possible. God is in control. I don't know if you guys believe in God. I believe in God. He is still on the throne. He's still a king. And none of this is a surprise to him. Anything is still possible, even in the midst of the traumas and dramas and tragedies that we're facing. And on the yellow card, I put take the scenic route, right? Live our lives. Go to Paris. Go to the beach. Eat the cake. Take the scenic route because anything is possible. Go to Paris if you can. Take a picture down this street. Let me see what that really looks like. So here they are. I've used a couple dies just to add some interest to the overall card. And I just think that this stamp is incredible. Look at that lightning bolt, boom, on the Capitol building. It's so much fun. Guys, let me know what you think about this technique or this medium and this stamp. And Pat over at Jechnque Junkies is having this wonderful special. It's a French note card kit, 20% off. 20% off. And then there's my discount code, TJ10Nancy, if you decide you'd like to have a little discount if you make a purchase from Jechnque Junkies. And y'all, I'm Nancy, the Handy Scandy. If you're not already a subscriber, a member of my tribe, I'd appreciate it if you would. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, ring that bell, but especially drop me a comment downstairs. We'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.